Welcome to South Texas Now, featuring attorney Joe A. Flores from the Flores Law Firm. He grew up right here in the Coastal Bend and became a physician's assistant, fell in love with the law, and became a lawyer. Each broadcast of South Texas Now brings you unique interviews with some of the voices that make a difference right here in South Texas. Now please enjoy this episode of South Texas Now.
And welcome to another edition of South Texas Now. This is your host, attorney and nurse practitioner Joe Flores. Remind you to join us each and every week right here on KRIS, KZTV, and other affiliates here in South Texas, not to mention social media platforms. Now look, guys, let's be honest. I talk a lot of politics. We talk about a lot of public service announcements. But today we're going to talk about money. So everybody grab your pickle, your popcorn, and your soda. It's going to be a barn burner because it's about money for college. Right now we're in crisis. Few people are applying for so much aid out there, especially Latinos and poor whites and other socioeconomic groups and racial groups need to think about this. And who better than a guest who's been through it just recently, not an old fossil like me. Vanessa. Welcome, Vanessa.
Hi, happy to be here.
Vanessa, where'd you go to high school?
I went to Ray High School.
And when did you graduate?
Class of 2022.
All right. And you've already done, it's almost a year that you're going to complete in college.
Yes, it is, at Texas A&M University.
Well, the thing that I wanted to talk about is the streets aren't paved with gold. I mean, you've got to work for it. You've got to make your applications. Can you just tell us, like, from the heart, what was it like applying and going through that process?
Applying for college was difficult. A lot of the times the counselors were incredibly overwhelmed with other students. They're not only concerned about students who are fixing to graduate, but other students as well. And it is difficult to receive the help that you need. However, usually on the websites to apply for college, there are links to scholarships already. You can also just type it up on the internet, and a lot of them are not just focused on grades. They're focused on extracurriculars that you do. If you have a job, you show determination outside of the school environment. Those are things that they look for. So please don't be discouraged when you're applying for scholarships that it's just on your grades. It's based on you and your whole self and you who you are, besides numbers on paper.
Well, let's talk about you for a minute, your experience. You mentioned some key points. So those people out there that say, I messed around 9th, 10th, I blew it 11th grade. Tell us about your experience from going from 8th grade and then hitting the big time and going into a major high school like Ray.
Right. So for elementary and middle school, I went to a private Catholic school, and for high school, I decided to go to public school, which was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I met some of my best friends there. However, that new environment, my freshman and sophomore year, was really difficult for me. I wanted to prioritize my friends and not really my studies. So when it was time my junior and senior year to start focusing on college, I knew that I had to sort of pick up my grades and make myself look better for the colleges that I was applying to. But just because you mess up your freshman and sophomore year, it's not over. You still have time to show improvement. And that actually helped me. The fact that I was able to go from pretty much coasting in my studies to, improving immensely was so fascinating as well as commendable to the colleges that I was applying to.
Well, talk to us a little bit about the experience of 2020, the spring, till you graduated when COVID hit and you had to study from home.
Well, when COVID hit, that was difficult for not just me, but other students. And it was really hard for all of us to try to get used to this online learning. But now the school system is set up where it's still taken up from the online learning from COVID. So now we're all sort of used to it, and even in college, nothing changes. It's still, we're using those internet tools, and I'm so glad because it does make it easier. Even often I can do my homework from my phone. And so everything is mobile, and you really get to learn on the go.
Do you miss the socialization, though? I know you were in a tight-knit group, sort of the quote-unquote intellectually elite of Ray, and to Miss Roxana, the principal, I want to say thank you. And for all of the educators out there and everyone who helps out, whether it's charter, private, I know it's a hot-button issue, but anybody who teaches, thank you guys for what you've done. And I want to thank my dad, who taught for nearly 30 years. But back to your experience. So the COVID thing was one barrier. And then you have all these pressures and distractions. Let's just lay it on the line, even adults, where on the phone, on the go, it's become an appendage. So when you're talking about your studies on there, how hard is it not to get distracted with the latest Netflix and, everything else?
I'm not going to front here. It is pretty difficult. Sometimes I'll do my homework for an hour and then I'll reward myself with 15 minutes of TikTok or YouTube or Netflix. But it's being able to have that discipline and knowing when to put your studies first and your fun later.
Well, let's zoom in a little bit and just talk about and I don't need specifics here because this is not a memory contest or Jeopardy, but just the process. What's the first thing? Nobody taught me. Poor me. Nobody taught me how to apply, and the counselor was like, it was the 80s, and he said, you ought to think about vocational school, and nothing wrong with vocational school except I made good grades and stuff, and they put me in a box as a Latino.
Right.
Thankfully, that's changed. For somebody out there, that whether they're poor from any walk of life, and let's face it, the middle class is eroding. There's less money to go around. Food is going crazy. Fuel is going crazy. And parents are worried about their children going to college. So for all the young people out there and not so young that are thinking about going back to college, talk to us about, your experience. What advice would you give them?
Well, now with the internet, everything's accessible on one platform for you to be able to apply for college. It's important that you have your GPA ready, your grades ready, as well as ready to write for the essays that you usually have to write, as well as your resume.
A lot of people, because of the internet, even myself as a lawyer, it's not like I sit there and write essays. So, like key points on an essay, any advice?
I say stick to a introduction, 3 points about yourself that you really want to get the reader to know about you, and the best way to represent yourself, and then a conclusion.
Let's talk about yours. That way we have a concrete example. We don't have to get into detail, but how did you do yours? So maybe someone out there, a Latina that wants to do what you're doing, a Latino or a person of color or socioeconomically challenged, what did you write about?
Well, one of the key issues and importances to colleges these days is the ability to showcase leadership. Throughout my different applications for many different schools throughout Texas, whether that be Baylor, UT, Texas A&M, they all seem to strive and to seek an individual with leadership skills. Now, that doesn't mean that you're just the president of a club, but leadership within change that you've done at your school, whether you presented a new idea to advocate for breast cancer or you're a leader at your work, different sort of key ways that you instituted leadership into your life. So for my essay, I was the cheer captain at Ray High School. I was the president of Latin Dance Club, president of a government club, so different things, but it was my ability to bring people together, to want to learn about different things, want to learn about the Latin culture, want to learn about government, want to cheer on our high school with school spirit, those different things. But in any way in your life that you have showcased leadership, they want to see it because everything's important. It doesn't matter if you've been president of this or that, but in any way in your life that you feel that you have been a leader. Even in your family, if you have been a leader or a provider for your family, they want to know and hear that.
Well, so what I'm hearing you say is we don't have to do the traditional, I was captain of the football team, I was the head cheerleader, I saved the world from a tsunami, you know. Important things matter, like, say, a young person was taking care of their dad, God forbid, dying of cancer, and they were the caregiver.
Exactly. They were the leaders of their family.
It's like showing leadership in so many different ways. They worked at Whataburger while they were going to veterans. They worked as a nurse's aide, or they were in healthcare occupation, Students of America at Moody.
Exactly.
You know, you mentioned, we got about a minute before the break, but you mentioned how you're thankful to counselors, like at Ray, in your experience. Why are they so important?
They're so important because they're a guide that maybe your parents applied to school differently than, we do. They didn't have technology. They didn't have that one resource to apply to 8 colleges. So it's important that we have our counselors, and we're so appreciative of them because they are our guide. And although they are busy, they will still make time for each and every student to help them, whether that be to find a job, to find resources for colleges, to apply for colleges and scholarships. Everything, they are there for you. However, I do need everyone to be patient because they are overwhelmed with many students in the CCISD area, but they are there to help you.
Well, you've been listening to Vanessa, one of many students that are excelling out there, that have applied for financial aid, that have gone through the process. Now we're going to delve deeper into the college experience once you get that aid when we come back.